What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest is passionate about creating distinctive architecture and interiors for private and corporate clients. He has worked on projects big and small, from multi-million-dollar resorts to small home renovations and all things in between. He's a licensed architect who really loves hospitality interiors. He's a new entrepreneur as a result of reevaluating his life's purpose and passions. We'll get into that in a bit. He is a partner at Murphy Cramer Design. Ladies and gentlemen, Geoff Cramer. Welcome, Geoff.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's so good to see you here and to have your time. So thank you. First of all, I just want to say I'm grateful to be able to speak with you live deep in the heart of Texas.
I'm supposed to clap when you do that, but, I'm not actually from Texas. So, that I lost it,
Wait, where are you from originally?
I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, originally.
Oh my God. I always thought you were from Texas. It's amazing.
I've been here longer than Louisiana, so it's easy to understand. Though they people who are from here like to hold that against me. Just you're not actually from Texas.
Well, I always thought you were, so this is amazing and a new surprise, and that's what I always love about these conversations. One of the things that I know that we were speaking about, or we've been speaking about for the past couple of years, but also I want the guests to know, and also what's very intriguing is this idea of being an accidental entrepreneur, right? And a part of that in our conversations is I love entrepreneurs. I'm a big proponent, supporter of entrepreneurs. I am one myself, but I find that we as entrepreneurs can tend to be kind of more closed off, where this is the path we're following, and this is my strategy, this is my plan, this is my tactics and how I'm going to execute them. And we all do that in some way. But then there's the other entrepreneurs who can be open-hearted and vulnerable and share, like, oh my God, I've not done this before. Like, do you have any experience doing that? And I think one of the things that's really intrigued me about you recently, even though we've known each other for a really long time, is how you do make yourself vulnerable in this kind of new entrepreneur hat that you're wearing. So I just wanted to hear about that and dig into it, because I think we can all learn. And that's where the best parts of all these conversations are, is in our vulnerability. So how did you become an accidental entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, it wasn't, accidental as much as, it was this idea I had for a long time. And, for those who've known me for a while, and, there's going to be people that, that laugh, like Morgan Brody, and like, okay, if you've had this long range plan for as long as I've known you. But really what happened was really just like you said, it was just kind of this reevaluation of, of what I wanted and of my own life. 7 years ago, my father passed away. He was fairly young. And it just gave me some time to think about, what is it that I want out of this? I mean, you only have, life is short. You only have so much time. And, what was it that I actually wanted? And it was something that I had thought about for a long time. I had been at the time with, it was Seifert Murphy for a couple iterations of partners. And I had been there for a couple of years and had, by this point, had really decided, after trying numerous different things, that hospitality interiors was my forte and what I really enjoyed doing. And that's a whole nother, set of analysis on how I got there. But, really just kind of sat down and broached the subject with Pat and Susan, Pat Murphy and Susan Seifert. And we talked about it and we discussed it. And, you know, if you think it's hard to convince yourself to go out on your own, do that first, and then go convince two other people to come along with you. That's sort of like this, like, it was gut wrenching. It was
So
a good.
That's exactly the place where I'd love to dig into also, because, you know, I think in sharing this, I think the passing of any really close family member, especially in your immediate family, or I speak from my experience in my immediate family, it even if it's known, if it's expected or unexpected or expected, it creates this whole new life reevaluation, right?
Yeah.
And from my experience, when my father passed away, it was expected. He just was not healthy for a long time. But I did all this soul searching, and obviously it didn't end there. I still am. But I read this one book. It's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I don't know if you've read it. But it was really a pivotal book for me, in the sense that before I read that book, I used to think about, you know, hey, what do I want out of life? How am I going to, you know, like Thoreau would say, like, suck the marrow out of life and live life deliberately. But after I read that book, instead of thinking about what I want from life, I started thinking, like, what does life want out of me? Like, what's my calling? How do I get in there? Right. So when you think about what life wants out of you, and trying to convince yourself and then trying to convince others, and that wrenching area that you, or that wrenching place that you were, like, how did you get the courage to take the steps forward to have those conversations, not just with yourself, but with others? Because I think a lot of us can always learn from this, not just in starting a business, but just in life.
I mean, really, obviously there was a good deal of self-evaluation and kind of thinking through things. And I mean, not even just the planning aspect of it, over the, you know, all the technical things of, you know, like, okay, what, you know, can I make this happen? Do I have it? It really just, it took getting enough courage of myself to say, no matter what the result, you know, whether, you know, Pat and Susan were to say, no, we're fine, see you later, no matter, or if they said yes, but no matter what the result, that I was going to be okay no matter what, that it was, you know, I would be able to figure something out, that it wasn't going to be this, you know, I wasn't going to be struggling to go, how am I going to live? I mean, you know, it just, but it took getting that courage of going, okay, you know, right or wrong, or, you know, whatever the answer may be, I'm going to be all right.
Yeah.
You know, so that was really sort of this turning point of doing that, and just coming to that acceptance of, hey, am I okay if they say yes? Hey, am I okay if they say no? And either way, I was going to be just fine with the answer.
You know, as you're sharing that, Jeff, I'm thinking about, I was just at the lodge. Oh, I saw you. We were at the lodging conference together.
Yep.
Did you go to the women in hospitality panel?
No, I missed that one.
No, you didn't. Okay.
Oh, no, actually I did with
Helen and Venus
yeah,
and
yes.
Shagrudi and yeah. Well, one of the, as you're saying that, it brought me back to Helen Jorgenson with Host, who was up on stage. She said something to the effect that someone was asking about her journey, and like could she share with herself or others, and it was this idea of ask a question and have someone else say yes or no to you. Don't have those conversations or be in that place where you are thinking about what the answers will be, right? So there's this gap between, okay, put yourself out there, talk to your partners, get them to say yes or no, but to get over that hump with yourself, to have the courage to ask the question. Like, so many people, me included, get caught in that speed bump of myself, right?
Right.
To never even hear it. And then you put yourself out there and then okay, it's a decision tree. Is this happening or isn't this happening? So I think to hear you struggle with that courage to get over the speed bump of yourself to get to that point, I think we can all learn from in every single aspect of our life, from personal to family and in business.
Yeah, I mean, it was, that probably, once that decision was made, and once I realized that, even just beyond, broaching the subject of being a partner, it's helped me in a lot of different areas of, like, I mean, especially after becoming a partner and all the different things that, come along with that. Knowing and having that courage to go, oh yeah, I can do this.
Mhm.
I've seen it before. I've seen what I can do. Let me see what else is out there. So that's been fun. That's a really cool part of the entrepreneurial kind of spirit.
Yeah, and if you could think of another time aside from um having the courage to convince yourself to have this kind of conversation, can you think of other times in your life or career where in a way you could be your own worst enemy?
Oh, yeah, I can. We we had this great opportunity. You've heard about it, but Hilton allowed us to and awarded us the project and task of redesigning the Homewood Suites prototype. Um, and I am so task oriented. It's so, okay, they've got this impossible schedule, but I'm like, okay, we've got it. My team can do this. Is uh, we chased that schedule to begin with, not as much on just trying to meet the dates that they had outlined. I hammered it into my team and was like, okay, yeah, we've got to do this, they're never going to make it unless we do whatever. And I thought we turned in, or returned okay work. It probably was not the best, um, you know, because in my mind, I'm thinking the priority here is the schedule and meeting what their expectations are. Where Larry Traxler was so kind to explain that it was kind of the destination. We need to explore this. We need to kind of unpack this. Don't worry so much about the schedule. He didn't say it in quite that term, but that was the gist of it. We need to really kind of work through the process of design, and if it takes longer, it takes longer. But that's the priority. Not meeting this, and so it was very much a learning experience to me, where I'm like, okay, you're getting in, you're overthinking this stuff. You're chasing down sort of the wrong thing, and it took somebody else to kind of to come back and kind of check us and say, hey, no, that's essentially we were told that it was not good enough, go back and try again. So that was really humbling, to have to do that, especially with somebody that I respect a lot.
But I think that the lesson learned there is, again, we all struggle with things. And is this my best foot forward? Is this the best? Is this the perfect? Oftentimes, it's like, and I don't know which general said this, I think in World War I, but it was basically perfect is the enemy of good, right? So we can get so tied in a knot over perfection that if we put ourselves out there without the perfect answer or solution, if we put ourselves out there and then get that feedback from others, like sometimes that's the most powerfully changing and life altering information that we can get back. But we're just scared to put ourselves out there so often.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the big lesson behind that, and for my team, was that and this sounds like it would be counterintuitive, but everything is important. Not just one thing or the other. What the work product we turn out, and the way it is done and the way it's presented is just as important as the content. And a lot of times, we would, oh, well, we can talk through, these are just ideas on paper. These are, they'll get through this concept, conceptual idea, and the graphics or the way we present it don't necessarily matter. We have changed our thinking on based on that.
Yeah. Well, it's important. And I think it also, obviously, like the podcast is defining hospitality, but if you think about so many of these conversations, again, there's no binary answer, but it's so much about how you make others feel, right? And I'll get to your definition in a second, but as an entrepreneur, so much of it is getting our teams and all of our stakeholders, from clients to employees to just all the people that it takes, the whole village it takes to run and operate a business and get from point A to point B. It's like, it's so much of it is giving so much of ourselves to make others better so we can all accomplish a task, right?
Right.
And it just makes me think, like, with you as an entrepreneur and thinking about the others around you, and you may see someone else on your team or another stakeholder kind of struggling with making that decision within themselves before they can put it out to you. How do you help others get that courage again to feel comfortable enough to share with you?
So, I mean, really, it's just it's time. I mean, the best answer I have is time. It's not one of those things, every once in a while you'll run into somebody and you'll just click and it feels like, hey, that's right. But for the most part, a lot of people take, it's getting to know, anyone on my team enough to, some of them you just know that something's not right, and I'll go and talk to them and they won't come to me. But even though I tell them, hey, my door's open all the time, whenever you need to talk about this, or work related or not work related, but they won't come anyway. And so I'll go to them because I'm like, okay. And then some of them are, all it took was just me saying, anytime, come on in, and they are here, more than necessary at times. But both is fine. I mean, really, both is fine. It's just, I want to know, or it takes getting to know them, well enough to know, when they're struggling, when they're having issues, when you also have to be present. It's like having kids, you gotta, if you're not there, you're not going to see and sense what's going on. Not that my employees are children, but they sometimes they feel like it, I guess.
Yeah, and I also think everyone, even though they're not children, they're obviously not children, but it is this idea that relationships are these things, whether with our family or people outside of our family or just other people, like, they just require nurturing, right? And as
Right.
you were talking, I had a vision of, like, every single professor in every university has office hours. How many students actually go in and use them?
Yeah, I could count on like one hand, only when there's usually problems. But I mean, gosh, it's not nearly as often as probably we should have.
Yeah. Well, okay. So then I think that's also a good segue into, like, the topic of the conversation, which is defining hospitality. And if you think about helping others become the best version of themselves, or get over that inner conflict, it's about making them feel comfortable enough to do it, right? To open up and be vulnerable. How do you define hospitality?
So, I mean, I really think, well, one, there, it's like, are you talking the industry, or are you talking the individual, the actual noun of, to be
Yes.
hospitable?
All of the above.
Yes.
All of the above. Yes.
Yeah. So, really it's being, or providing, strangers or guests kind of this comfortable, warm, friendly, welcoming sort of experience, and really in whatever sort of, I wrote myself a note just so I can make sure I remember, but for, and whatever sort of experience they're there for. Part of that has to do with being intuitive. So there's a little bit of anticipation on, on our side. When we were working on this prototype, a lot of the time was spent kind of defining who the guests were, and then a lot of time kind of anticipating what their needs would be. And sometimes even before they were, before they even know it, you're kind of anticipating in advance what kind of situations they may be in and what kind of needs would they be looking for, and how can we comfort and provide them a comfort, warm and welcoming experience. And so I think that sort of tiptoes around the question, I think, a little bit, but it provides it, pretty well. Kind of my thoughts on it.
This idea of anticipation is just so difficult in anything. And I don't know, you go to some of the best restaurants, there can be some badgering. Hey, are you okay with water? Do you want another drink? Or you can be in these places where I don't know how they do it. Like coming to mind is like Singapore Airlines. You're flying, you're on this really long flight. Somehow they just know when you're thirsty and they bring you a glass of water. They don't even ask. It's like they just know. And I know it's not telepathy, right? I know it's a trained observation. And I think what's also interesting, to think about that idea of anticipation and wanting everything to be perfect, but realizing that it can't be perfect. It also makes me think about, your journey from being an architect to focusing on hospitality interiors, where I find, like, again, not all, but most of the architects I know are, like, so inflexible and like, this is my thing I'm doing. It's perfectly designed and this is my edifice of whatever.
Right.
And then you switch over to the hospitality side of things, or even on the interiors, which is what the people are interacting with. You really have to think about how they're interacting. And again, I think personally, I'm also biased that that's the most important part of any building, is what's going on the inside. So how did you make that journey from architect to interiors, and specifically in hospitality? Like, what draws you there?
Well, I mean, this is the simple answer was just dumb luck, is really how I got into it. But the kind of longer answer was, exposure and working with, I guess my first exposure to it was with Leo Daly and working with Pat Miller there, and kind of really understanding a little bit more, about what hospitality experience was, or, about hospitality design and that kind of thing. And then when I came to the firm that is now Murphy Cramer Design, 17 years ago, I really came as an architect to do these, high-end residential projects. And because of my background and having some hospitality interiors experience, I got to work on, so, they always had that as part of the project or part of what I was doing. But really in the 2008 and 2009 downturn, when, things really went kind of south all over the place, the only work we had was hospitality. And I was like, okay, this will be fine. And then I think it was probably 2011, maybe 2012, and where I really, I had to sit down and kind of think, hey, the market's kind of opening up again. What do I really want to focus on? And this is the kind of the question of where you kind of go through a rubric of like, okay, what do I like about it? What do I don't like? Kind of this pros and cons. And ultimately, I came to the decision that, I really like what I do. I love the industry, and I love everything about it, and I'm going to really kind of wholeheartedly kind of go after it. And that's the short short, not so short answer to that question of how I actually got into it.
Yeah. And also just thinking about the evolution from Seifert Murphy to Murphy Cramer, I would always think of you guys doing high-end residential, 3+ to 5-star, I don't know, standalone, like in one-off
Right.
hotels, right? Brand, like this is a sense of place, and this is this. So it's actually really cool that Hilton had the, I guess, insight to say, hey, let's give these guys a try to see how they can do on Homewood Suites, which is like an iconic brand that's, been around forever, but not in a sandbox that you're used to playing in. And it's super, that must have been like just such an incredible exercise and change of thinking. And also just focusing on who is the guest and what is the anticipation of that guest's needs.
Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, with our background in doing, luxury resorts kind of all over the South and Caribbean and Mexico and Latin America, we got pretty adept at, kind of this workflow of how do we go identify, really immerse ourselves in the culture, really understand, the locale and the people. So, and then how that affects affects the design of what we do. So that's really, we still carry that sort of thought, even though we haven't designed a resort since, years ago. I mean, Baja Mar, I think, was the last one we really worked on. But that same philosophies, that same process we bring to each one of those. So while it was a different sort of, a completely different, project type, you could kind of bring the same sort of thought process through to that. And then, Hilton was very adept at really kind of walking us through, and they have some great people on their design team and on the other side that really kind of, as we all worked through this and all worked through, okay, who are the guests? How do we define them? What do they need? It was a great, it really kind of supplemented what we kind of do, as we kind of thought through things, stuff that we still carry through on new projects. I mean, like, it was a definite learning experience for us.
But I know that when I was speaking to Hilton and hearing that they were reconcepting Homewood Suites, the first thing that popped into my mind was, are they going to keep the duck? Where's the duck going? Where is the duck going? Is the duck there? Like, what's going on? Is it hiding in other ways?
So the duck actually has a name. His name was Lewis. And he is no longer, the prototype was set in Memphis. And so we joked that, that Lewis has left the building. He is not involved. There's been a parting of ways as we speak, that they've kind of really modernized everything. And that was, that kind of hunting lodge, duck camp sort of feel was good for, when the brand started. They've made it's progressed.
And on the history of the brand, I know Hilton's, they have a quasi headquarters for a lot of the select service in Memphis. But was the brand Homewood Suites, did that start in Memphis as well?
I do not know the answer to that. I should,
okay,
but I do not.
The reason why I was asking is because I remember one time, I think it was just after college, I was with two of my closest friends. We were sitting in the Peabody playing cards in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no one there. We were just having some drinks, playing cards. And then out of nowhere, I felt like all these busloads of people just entered the lobby, literally from the mezzanine all around us, literally busloads. It got so crowded. And then all of a sudden, some guy in like a fancy jacket came in with like a wand or a marching band staff, and was
the duck master.
Is it the duck master? It's a thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, he got to the fountain that we were sitting next to, and the ducks like hopped out and went into the elevator, and I guess they live upstairs. But I was just very surprised that all these people came to see the ducks.
Yeah. I mean, it's a thing, I guess. I have taken my children there to see it. So, I mean, people do come just to see that. So,
well, that and Graceland, right?
They did not go to Graceland, but, I guess
Or
people do
Motel
that.
Lorraine, which also I think everyone should definitely see. Memphis is a cool town. I just started reading The Blind Side with my son as we drive everywhere, and that all takes place in Memphis as well. I need a trip back there. It's been a long time, especially with the new Elvis movie that just came out.
Which, if you haven't seen, is pretty fantastic.
It's amazing. It is so, I thought it would be so overdone and like so like quintessentially like overdone Lerman, but it just showed Elvis in a whole different way that was really, really cool. And I really suggest everyone see that. But as we digress, see the ducks, they take us on a journey.
Just get us way off course.
Yeah, but it's good. Everyone needs more ducks in their life. So then you got really uncomfortable redesigning, or do it not really uncomfortable. You stepped into a new sandbox, so to speak, redesigning the Homewood Suites brand and working in lockstep with Hilton to do that. A departure from what you were used to. And now you think about where you're like, okay, so you've had that experience. You still have all of your luxury experience. What's exciting you about your new entrepreneurial path forward?
Well, I mean, one thing that I think is fascinating is, with Susan retiring, the amount of luxury work we get is not like it used to be. And that's really okay, but we're doing a lot more with lifestyle projects. We just got back from, we still do a lot down in Latin America. We just got back from the Dominican Republic, reviewing a model room down there for a soft branded hotel called Hotel Santiago. And then, we're about to kick off another soft branded hotel in, Truckee, California. So, those kind of things are really, they're just fun. I mean, it's taking sort of that luxury mindset and how it's very similar to what we did with the Homewood, is how do you take this luxury mindset and kind of apply it to things that maybe are not quite as luxury, that are more accessible for the average consumer.
So for the project in Truckee, are there going to be any kind of cannibalistic themes going on at that hotel?
Not yet. But there may be like a standing reservation for the Donner Party. I'm not sure. I don't know. It will have a rooftop hotel. Rooftop restaurant and bar. So
that was a really good one. Do you think you'll have fish on the menu just for the halibut?
Oh gosh. I don't know. Don't know. We haven't gotten that far.
Halibut that. Yeah, I love it when my dad jokes get to come out.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I keep telling everybody, they roll their eyes here, and I'm like, just give it time. You guys will learn to appreciate it.
I totally agree. So a bunch of new projects coming up, and then anything else, like, did this reconcepting on the select service side of things help you with a new strategy in your business as well?
We have been asked to propose on a lot of the select service, especially involved with the Homewood. People know we've done the brand, done the prototype, and it just, sometimes you just need to stay in your lane and understand what you are best at. And I say that lightheartedly, but it's also true. I mean, for the most part, we've proposed on them and are not winning any of them. And I don't know how. I mean, God bless the people that can do these as cheaply as they do, but we can't. You know, I mean, it just, I have tried and I'm not really sure how it pencils out. You know, so we kind of stay in our lane of, you know, everything but select service, I guess. Not saying if there wasn't the opportunity, we would do it, but it just is, you know, it's one of those things where it just, I get it. And the owners that have come to us are very apologetic. And I'm like, you know, I get it. I understand it. And, you know, thank you for the opportunity, I guess.
But also the idea of staying in your lane is a really powerful and also scary prospect, right? Because I think to be really successful at anything, you know, you need to be hyper focused in what you're best at, right? You find that zone of genius and you stay in there. But when you're hyper focused and you stay in your lane as an entrepreneur that and pay rent and keep the wheels moving, it's scary to focus in on this tight little bullseye at the expense of not working on so much of what else is out there.
That is definitely one of the scarier parts. And, you know, when, you know, Pat and I talk a lot about, okay, you know, business strategy, how we're pricing things, what are we really looking at? And, you know, we do our best to go after them. I mean, like, it's not like we're just ignoring that stuff. But we know our strong suit. And so the thing is to really kind of, it's not as, sometimes there's kind of a slight broadening of your focus. You know, getting into some of these true lifestyle hotels has been something we've been kind of slowly kind of working towards a little bit, you know, more than I would say I'm super comfortable with. I've got team members who are phenomenal at it. And, you know, it just, you know, so it's kind of one of those things where you can't just say, okay, here's my focus and I'm going to totally reshift into left field. But if you can kind of slowly expand your focus as the opportunity arises, you know, that's kind of more of, it's a subtle shift than a complete about face sort of thinking.
Yeah. You know, I've heard you say lifestyle hotels a couple times and rethinking about what that is. Like, it's obvious. I think, like, if I see a lifestyle hotel, I could probably tell you, hey, that's a lifestyle hotel. And it's obvious that, like, so much investment from Hilton, IHG, Marriott, Accor going into this space, and everyone else. I don't mean to only focus on them. But like, when you think of what a lifestyle hotel is versus a boutique hotel or a resort, like, how do you differentiate what a lifestyle hotel is from everything else? Because I feel like, and there's probably not a wrong answer, but it seems like there's a lot of flexibility with what a lifestyle hotel is on the margin. So what does it mean to you?
So I think a lot of that has to, you know, has to do with what demographic they're trying to hit, you know, as for a lifestyle hotel. So some of the, you know, the more, the ones really geared towards the younger, you know, generations, you know, like a Moxie, you know, that Marriott has, you know, that's pretty obvious to me. I mean, like, it's fun, it's lighthearted, it's got, you know, all the things that go with it. It's kind of quirky. You know, when you get into, say, which we also do a good bit of, or we do a good bit of, is the Canopy by Hilton. So, you know, when you look at those, and it's a different sort of demographic that they're going after. It's a little bit older. Doesn't mean that it couldn't be a younger generation, but it's a little bit more serious. But they all tend to have sort of, you know, this heavily sort of community aspect to them. You know, they tend to be a little more casual in their thinking. It's not a super serious sort of, you know, high design, and we don't do, but, you know, the crazy thing about a lifestyle is that it could, I mean, you go look at some of, you know, the things that, what's the Kelly Wersler just did down in Austin.
Like the proper.
the proper. I think that fits a lifestyle sort of definition, but it's getting a little bit out of that. It's not quite as funky. And I could be way wrong. I really, I could just, but it just, it's really, I don't have a great answer to it.
If going back to when you were first talking about your Homewood Suites experience, and also I think it ties into just kind of staying in your lane and being super focused. What I kind of picked up from you there, it's like being super clear about who your guest is for lifestyle, right? And it's focusing in on that psychographic or demographic. I think it's more of a psychographic than a demographic, to be perfectly honest. It's really like a state of mind that you're focusing in on that traveler or guest at the expense of many, many others. Not all others, but many others. And again, I think it just reaffirms that idea that focus works. Focus helps deliver so many things. Focus is a thesis. Focus is a goal. It's an achievable, measurable goal. And it helps if we're all super focused about things, we can get there much easier than trying to please everyone.
Right. Yeah, and I think that is true. That's, like I mentioned, one of the things we really have carried over. Some of the brands now require a branding package, and they have somebody else doing that. But when that is not being done by an outside source, it is something we will do in-house, just to help us internally define. The clearer you are, the more definition of you can, as to who the guest is and what kind of experience they are there for. The better off we are, the better off everyone is. It's been real fun. We've got a crazy little project up in Cripple Creek, Colorado, which is up behind Pikes Peak, just outside of Fort Collins. And I'm sorry, Colorado Springs, not Fort Collins. And, it's a gold mining town. They allow gambling, and they're struggling to figure out how and who their next guest will be. And so we've been able to work through them with that, which has been kind of fun. And be able to bring some of that thought of like, hey, let's clearly identify who you're actually going after as future hotel guests, not just the ones you have, but who do you want? Don't ignore the ones you have, but if you were to add to it, how would we go about that? So that's been really fun.
I also think about, as far as identifying who the guest would be, I would think that the documentation and the data that Hilton would have would be way more robust and clear than what an independent hotelier might have for their property in Cripple Creek, or it could be anywhere. Once you're presented with that data, either actual or aspirational or something in between, what are like your kind of, what's your process as far as like taking that information and turning it into a built environment that feels a certain way, like you said before when you're talking about hospitality?
Gosh, it's just one more sort of data point, one more sort of idea that we can help and kind of, if it's if say it's this Cripple Creek hotel, and they, you have to, to want to stay at 10,000 feet in the air is, above sea level is, you have to be pretty determined at that point. And if you're not there for the gambling, what else? So you can start to create this story, create this idea of who these people are and what they would be looking for. It's like, okay, somebody who's doing that is pretty adventurous. Okay, you could start to deduce a lot of things, and that will start to kind of affect the way we're designing a hotel. It's going to be a little bit more casual. It's going to be a little bit, so you start to kind of make assumptions, I guess, based on that demographic and based on who we've identified as the target audience for this.
But
It's not a real, direct science, I guess. It's not like, oh, we could say go from here to here to here, or that's
yeah,
going to
but I guess
directly relate.
ultimately it's really taking all that data or who that ideal customer or guest is, and really developing a thesis off of it that I guess through a iterative, collaborative process, all the stakeholders can kind of agree on, and then you build from there.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I would imagine the brief you would get from Hilton would be like ginormous.
The speed and detail that Hilton can provide things like that was phenomenal to me. I mean, just the data that they could collect was astronomical. I mean, they could, there was at times we had, we needed answers on something, and they're like, well, we will go poll, our honors members, and they have some honors members that they know they can quickly get an answer from, and they can get you, like down to, hey, what's a priority? I'm making something up, but like whether you need a bathtub in the bathroom, or are you okay with a freestanding shower? I mean, I'm just making that one up, but they can come back to you with surprising accuracy within a couple of weeks, like, give it 10 days. And then just the other data that they can pull by their online sort of systems. And, it's mind boggling. It really is. I mean, it just, it was phenomenal. I mean, it was just really pretty amazing. And I know all the other brands have that same sort of ability to do that. I'm assuming that they can all tap into that as needed, but it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, they must have it, especially when you think about, if you have 15 to 30 something brands under your umbrella, so to speak, it's you have to be able to get super granular. And then whoever the guest is right now, it's probably different than the guest in 10 years, just because people age, their needs and wants and desires, everything is always changing.
Yeah, which is not bad when you're talking from a design standpoint, to kind of have this continual refresh of things and thoughts that you kind of constantly, it's never, one, and then we figured it out, we're done for the rest of it. It's always, I mean, especially as everybody's kind of, all the brands are moving to this, fixed renovation cycle, and, trying to plan out when they renovate things for everybody. There's some, it makes it really nice for us to know, okay, in the next couple of years, we're going to have this happen or that happen, or they're going to need to renovate all this, or, when a new prototype or something else comes out that, people say, hey, there's some planned, and obsolescence is not as a good word, but maybe at least we can know there's going to be work coming for the next couple of years.
Yeah, because we always need to reinvent. When you're within, I guess, when you're within your zone, so to speak, or operating within your goals and your focus, or a new project that is kind of outside of there, do you have a similar way to kick off each project? I'm thinking like it's the first day of school, you get a brand new Trapper Keeper, or new notebooks or pen, like, and then you just go in, it's a fresh, clean start, it's a clean slate. Do you have a certain way that you like to kick off your new projects that you're working on?
Well, I mean, we tell pretty much all of our clients, to some degree, they'll let us do this, and some, it's not feasible, but we really like to have a kickoff with all the members in the team, on site, with get all the stakeholders there to really understand what the actual project is, and to understand kind of, that's sort of a given. That's what we always do. And then from there, it's kind of this, and I don't mean standard's not a great word to say it, but we kind of go through our process of, analysis of the site, analysis of the locale, Sometimes, ideally, that's on site. Sometimes we've had to do, it's not been feasible, and we'll have to do things, via the power of the internet. But for the most part, it's on site, and really kind of understanding a project and getting a good feel for it, and then bring it back to Dallas and really kind of work through that and what it is this project is.
Awesome. All right, now I want to get in a time machine with you. I want you to go back to Baton Rouge, I guess before you went away to college, right? So there's, what is that, the 17 or 18-year-old of you, probably with a lot more hair.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And let's just pretend you arrive in front of yourself. And what advice do you give yourself for the future?
Gosh, I think it goes back to how we kicked off this, this talk, but it'd be basically just have confidence in yourself. Have confidence to know that, that no matter the outcome, it's never the end of the world. And that, you're going to be all right, no matter what.
Yeah. And I think to build on that, and just hearing you, get up the courage to have the conversation that we started the conversation off with, like, I got to reach out to figure out how she said it, but it's really just stop having the conversation within yourself. It'll be a yes or no, but we all need to just get better at just putting it out there and hearing if it's a yes or a no, or oftentimes it's not a yes or no, it's some other path, right?
The buildup is always, that you in your mind is far greater than what the answer is going to come back to be. I mean, because my mind was, okay, well, they're a simple yes or no question. If they would, Pat and Susan would entertain this idea, and let's kind of go down this path. And I had already worked towards they're going to, be pissed off, and they're going to, lock me out, and they're going to, like, my mind had gone from something which should have been very simple to like the worst case scenario. And it's like when people say, what's the worst can happen? They're just going to say no. And which they had done once before already. So this was not the first time that this had come up. So it's you kind of work yourself up into things, go, okay, this is going to be horrible. And it really is not nearly as bad as our mind makes it out to be.
And if you, okay, so much in the same way, giving yourself advice, if there are any other, if there's anyone else, whether it's starting a business or making a big life decision, and they're kind of wrestling with the choice between their two ears, right? It's all going on in their head. What, from your experience, can you share with those out there who are struggling with a big decision to take that first step?
So, I mean, probably one of the biggest, I have a very good friend. And so one of the biggest things that was helpful was to actually have somebody, a sounding board that I knew that they would give me solid advice. I knew they had the kind of business acumen. It was somebody that I trusted, that we could sit down and kind of talk through it. And I would say, if you don't have somebody like that, find somebody. If you're, there are avenues out there to kind of to find people if you need that advice, but really kind of need that sounding board, that somebody that you can go back to and say, okay, this is my thought. What do you think? And he's going to shoot it to you straight.
I totally agree. And also, just from my experience too, it's having the courage internally to just be go in, open up, be vulnerable, and take that step to ask that person, ask that sounding board, or the people who are sounding boards, or to just have that uncomfortable conversation. Because it's uncomfortable, the most uncomfortable conversations we can ever imagine having or have had, I think we've all materially changed after having those. I would argue more often for the better, because no matter the outcome, being uncomfortable helps us become better versions of ourselves, right? It helps us grow.
Yeah, I know. I would agree with that.
Cool. Jeff, if people wanted to get in touch with you or learn more about Murphy Cramer Design, like how do they do that?
They can either email me directly. I'm happy to give that out, which is gcramer@mcdesign.com, or I'm pretty easily accessible on our website or LinkedIn. Kind of any one of those is probably the best way. But
Cool.
and I've got an Instagram, but it has nothing to do with what we do. It's just kind of random stuff that I post out there.
All right. Well, we'll put that up in the notes. And I think I'm going to see you again in a couple weeks, depending. Actually, maybe we'll push this airing up a little bit, because I'm going to be out there for there's a big NEWH thing going on, I think in a week or 10 days.
Yeah, it's next week, I think.
Yeah, and you're going to be
24th.
24th or 27th. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'll put it in there.
I don't remember, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping I'll get to see you. And I know in the past, I've always said that this is always, it's every week this show has grown and grown and grown. I'm just now, it's all been word of mouth, but now I'm just starting to reach out to some people who I think would be interested on LinkedIn to give it a shot and a listen as we continue to grow. And so thanks if you're listening to this for the first time. If anyone else has been listening to this over and over, which I know a lot of people have, I hope that this has helped change your idea on making others have the courage to become better versions of themselves, or really think about what the built environment is for hospitality. If this has changed your thinking or reaffirmed your thinking, again, please share this. We're really excited to grow and keep getting the message out. And again, Jeff, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dan. It's been fun.
And everyone else, thank you so much for listening, and we will be in touch.